Now available in paperback. Those who refuse the gift of eternal life are condemned to wander in the darkness of eternal night. Get your copy of Eternal Night at online booksellers today. Marvel Studios has shut down production of its Blade reboot. Now, this Blade reboot was supposed to be the film that was supposed to launch Phase 5, and it was supposed to be released in 2023. However, the film suffered serious production problems behind the scenes, which started with a screenplay which was written by the black woman who had wrote HBO's Watchmen series. Now, Marvel Studios expected an action-packed script from this black female screenwriter. Unfortunately, it looked like this black female screenwriter was completely out of her depth as related to writing a vampire story, and the script she presented only had 2 action scenes in its 90 pages, and once those pages were read by people behind the scenes, such as actor Mashallah Ali, who was supposed to be portraying Blade, it was considered to be just lackluster, because a vampire movie, for the most part, is supposed to have lots of action sequences, and it's supposed to have lots of blood and gore. However, I believe that this black female screenwriter was not only hampered by her being out of her depth, but she was also hampered by Marvel Studios' efforts to go out here and put a PG-13 rating on Blade to make it more family-oriented when your vampire movies are considered to be R-rated and they're supposed to be filled with lots of gory graphic violence. So this film was already being held back by the standards of Marvel Studios, because most Marvel Studios films are PG-13. A grossly unqualified screenwriter who was out of her depth, and I believe that this was one of the main problems behind the scenes with the Blade reboot, and those problems further got compounded on the Blade reboot once the director, Bassam Tariq, decided that he did not want to direct the film anymore. Now, I believe that the director, Bassam Tariq, probably took a look at that script that was so ineptly written and decided he didn't want his name attached to it, because he probably thought that this movie, if he were to direct it in the state that it was in, would possibly be something as bad as 2004's Catwoman, which starred Halle Berry. Now, the 2004 film Catwoman was a film that was announced years before, just like your Blade was announced in 2019. Now, your Catwoman was announced in 1992, but it didn't get produced until about 2004. And the reason why the film didn't get produced until about 2003, 2004 was because Michelle Pfeiffer passed on the initial script, and after she passed, they tried to sell it to other actors, and because the money had already been greenlit, the studio was stuck with this project, and as it languished in what many in Hollywood call development hell, this film basically was written and rewritten and basically was passed and presented to multiple actors, and many actresses just wound up passing on the script, seeing it as something that could possibly destroy their career, because once a project gets circled around and passed to different actresses, that means that the project isn't really tailored for you. So the film was made to just be a cash grab, and your Halle Berry decided to grab the $15 million salary that the studio was offering her, not understanding that this film had been around, and if a script has been around, you don't really want to touch it, because that means there are serious problems with the script. However, your Halle Berry did take the script for Catwoman, and that script wound up ending Halle Berry's career, and it also wound up ending the director Patoff's career. And I'm guessing Bassam Tariq sees the red flags with this Blade script being 90 pages long, and he also sees that when a studio is out here looking to do a rewrite very rapidly, he sees the red flags and he sees how this could do damage to his professional career, and that's why he's bailing on the project. Now, as somebody who has studied the entertainment industry for over 20 years, I can tell you, again, there are red flags with this Blade production, and when you have a studio shutting a project down, that means the problems that they're trying to fix are only going to get worse. And when it comes down to this Blade reboot, it's definitely going to get worse, because now you have people at Marvel Studios panicking about this production. Now that they know that they don't have a good script, what they're doing right now is now scrambling to find another screenwriter to write them a brand new script, and they're also rushing and scrambling to now find a new director, now that Bassam Tariq has gone out here and dropped out of the director's chair, and your Sam Raimi, who was rumored to be considered to be the director, seems to not be interested in taking the job. And again, most directors don't like taking over for other directors because you cannot really get your vision on screen, and it's hard to work when you can't really put a vision on screen. And that is one of the problems with this Blade reboot as I see it. I mean, when you get handed a whole bunch of issues as related to a film, such as the screenplay not really being written and being written on the fly like this, that's a red flag for most directors, and most directors will not touch that project because they want to have their vision on screen and they want to be able to tell their own story. So when I see a director leaving a project, it's because there's usually executive meddling at the top levels, and this is tying that director's hands. And when a director sees that his hands are getting tied by by executives and a bad script, that's telling me that there are serious problems with this production. And when I see that they're writing the screenplay as they're going along and trying to restart a production schedule, this is again another red flag, because if you're out here trying to get this production together for a release in 2024, then you've got some serious problems, because again, screenplays just don't get written in 90 days. Yeah, you'll get a draft done in 90 days, but you need a solid structured story, and a solid structured story is going to take you 6 months to a year, because when I was writing screenplays like All About Marilyn, yeah, I got the draft down in about maybe 90 to 180 days, but it took me another year or so to go out here and do the polish and revisions, iron out some of the sequences, iron out many of the pacing issues. And again, this takes time. And again, Marvel Studios is rushing. And the main reason why they are rushing is because Kevin Feige's mouth wrote a check that now his backside can't cash. He has lined up financing for this Blade reboot, and he doesn't want to go out here and lose any of that money. Unfortunately, what's happening now is the film is heading into what many in the studios call development hell, and as the film winds up in development hell, we are not going to be able to get a quality film. And I believe that as long as this production remains going on with the problems behind the scenes, we are heading closer and closer to the film that may possibly be the rock bottom for Marvel Studios. Yes, they did the right thing by shutting down this production, but the production schedule is one that really the studio can't work with, because if you don't have a script, you don't have a movie, and if you have to write a brand new script, then you really don't have the foundation for a movie. And this is where your Marvel Studios is with this movie, and that place is development hell. And the whole thing is they're rushing to try to get this film to a new date of September 6, 2024, and that date is an ominous one because that date is right in the time when studios throw out the trash. Now, I've said in a previous video where I talked about the movie Bros, I talked about how that movie was set on a date for September 30th, and when it's set for a date for September 30th, that's a date that says basically the studio believes that this movie is a failure, and it's looking like Marvel Studios believes that Blade is going to be a failure because they've slated this movie to premiere on September 6th, 2024, right in the middle of the period where your movie studios take out the trash and dump the garbage, the films that they know are going to fail. And it looks like, again, your Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios don't have much faith in Blade, and they don't believe the film is going to make the cut, because that's the only reason why a studio would take a character that was defined by Wesley Snipes and a reboot of his character and set it at a date of September 6, 2024. That date basically is a death sentence for this movie because it's after the summer movie season and right before the fall horror movie season, which would be in full swing in mid-October. And again, if Marvel Studios had faith in this film and thought it would be a great horror movie, they would have given it a date in late October and let it be the blockbuster that kicks off the fall movie season. But because your Kevin Feige doesn't have faith in Blade making the cut, what he's doing is he's setting this movie up for failure, similar to the way he set Black Panther up for failure. And again, he didn't want, that's because I believe Marvel Studios doesn't want, again, to see a strong black masculine character being a hero. And again, they, I believe, deliberately sabotaged this movie early on, again, because he tried to go out here and hired an inexperienced screenwriter. No, if you really care about this character, Blade, you're going to get a guy with a background like myself who can go out here and write in the horror genre, because as a guy who has written horror stories like Isis Night of the Vampires, Isis Bride of Dracula, Isis Escape from Transylvania, and the novel Eternal Night, I have a solid background in writing vampires and demons and all of that stuff, and writing action-packed sequences. And I know for a fact from writing these kind of stories, you can tell a whole vampire story in 90 pages, and you could do it with lots and lots of action, because horror is supposed to be non-stop action. And if you hire a screenwriter and they're talking about 90 pages and there's no action or lackluster action sequences, you hired the wrong screenwriter. And again, hiring the right screenwriter to clean up that mess, that's going to take some work to do, and it would take at least a year for you to get a good quality script. So I see where they've given up on Blade, because they know that they cannot make the cut with this film, and they can't make the cut because your Kevin Feige really didn't have a vision outside of saying, I'm going to write a Blade for Phase 5, and that your Phase 5 is just as bad as Phase 4, because clearly there is no vision or direction from your Kevin Feige, and we clearly see that he's practically overwhelmed at this point, because a supernatural story about a vampire hunter, this should have been one that a good, solid production team should have knocked out easily. Unfortunately, the problems at Marvel Studios as related to them being overextended, overwhelmed, and really just losing their whole focus and direction they are proving to be true. And sadly, what we're seeing with this shutdown of Blade is a breakdown at Marvel Studios, and that breakdown is showing us that your Marvel Studios has gone from a place of a precipitous decline over the course of FAIL4 to Phase 4, and we're getting closer and closer to rock bottom. And I've said before, I believe Blade is going to be the movie that is going to take Marvel Studios to rock bottom, because you're trying to do too much and you need to take a break and take a breather, because you're working too many people too far. And what's happening is you're making subpar movies, and I believe Blade will be one of the worst movies to hit the superhero genre. And the irony is that Wesley Snipes' Blade was the movie that basically revived the superhero genre, but I believe Kevin Feige's reboot will be the film that basically puts the nail in the coffin for superheroes for the 2020s. Now, if you want to pick up some of my African American horror fiction, like Isis Night of the Vampires, Isis Bride of Dracula, Isis Escape from Transylvania, and my vampire novel Eternal Night, you can find all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find all of those books on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play, with the exception of Eternal Night, which is now on Kindle Unlimited. And if you want to read it on Kindle Unlimited, you can read it for free if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription. And if you want to see me make more comic, sci-fi, and fantasy videos, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, and my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Bride of Dracula. Goddess Next Door and John Haynes team up to take on the Dark Vampire in this action-packed Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Bride of Dracula in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, E-Steam Horror of the Hyena Woman. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a wicked werewolf in this action-packed all-new E-Steam series adventure. Get E-Steam Horror of the Hyena Woman in paperback and e-readers today.